Hi, everyone. My name is Emmy Amirati. I'm Assistant Director of our Online Writing Center at ACU. Tonight, we will be talking about researching and writing about leadership theories, and I'm so excited that my colleague, Dr. Basil Considine, is here to help us chat about these points. Can you say hi, Basil?
Hello, everyone. I'm the doctoral writing lead at ACU, but I do work with students at all levels, and leadership theories are something that a lot of students will learn earlier in their studies and then find that it's a gift that keeps on giving. So I'm excited to have a conversation about this today.
Awesome. So let's see. Today, our learning objectives are we will use the APCO 465 Week 1 Assignment 1, Leadership Theories in Healthcare Management, to understand how to prepare to write about leadership theories, locate scholarly research about leadership theories, cite and reference resources in APA format, and organize and develop a draft. So let's begin by focusing on learning objective 1, prepare to write about leadership theories. First off, we need to know what leadership theories are. And as Dr. Considine just told us, you may be working with these early on in your academic career and then applying them throughout and into your career non-academically going forward. So, leadership theories are sets of ideas that try to explain the strategies and traits of leaders and the factors that make certain people become leaders. Basically, they explain how and why certain people lead. To write about leadership theories, we need to consider some of the following points. First, we might want to provide background on the theory. Who developed the theory and when? Is it a classic theory or a contemporary theory? We may also want to talk about what are the general characteristics of the theory and leaders who reflect it. In addition to describing the characteristics, we might want to talk about specific actions or behaviors that leaders engage in when they apply this theory. We can talk about those behaviors or actions at 3 levels, the task, team, and individual levels. For tasks, we mean how does the leader achieve a specific goal or shared task within the organization? For team, how do they facilitate cooperation and teamwork among their followers? And at the individual level, how do they address each team member's needs? We might also need to talk about applying the theory in a specific organizational context. What are its benefits in that context, and what are its challenges? Different leadership theories may be more or less successful in certain circumstances. So let's consider how our context is going to drive the application of leadership theories for this assignment. Remember, our class is APCO 465, Healthcare Leadership and Relationship Management. The assignment is Week 1, Assignment 1, Leadership Theories in Healthcare Management. If you happen to be looking at our slide deck posted on our website, this link will be active and enable you to click right through to the assignment. The purpose of this assignment is to help students discuss leadership theories and understand their importance in healthcare management. So that means healthcare management is our context. For our instructions, notice that the paper should be 3 to 4 pages long and in APA format. We must use 2 to 3 scholarly sources from the ACU Library Distance Learning Portal to support the answers. In this assignment, you are selecting leadership theories from Chapter 4 of your textbook. You can also choose an outside leadership theory that is not in Chapter 4 of the textbook, but you need to apply it to healthcare leadership. So, first you'll need to select 2 leadership theories and complete the following steps. Provide an overview of each leadership theory, provide background on the theory, describe how each leadership theory approaches task needs, individual needs, and team needs, as we mentioned earlier, and list and explain the benefits and challenges of each theory. After you do this for both theories, you'll also need to select one and explain why you think it's the best leadership approach for healthcare management. Here's our assignment rubric. For The first 3 points, they're all related to addressing the points about Theory 1. That's about 35 points of your grade. Another 35 points goes to addressing the areas for Theory 2. And then you need to address this theory that you think is best and explain why. And the last 10 points come from your APA formatting, your length requirement, and using appropriate in-text citations and references. Now that we've reviewed the assignment, our next learning objective is to understand how to locate scholarly sources about leadership theories. Remember that the assignment said that you need to locate 2 to 3 scholarly sources from our ACU online library. So what exactly is a scholarly source? Basil. Every year, my local newspaper picks a bunch of people who they consider to be citizen experts on things like gardening or cooking or spiritual life. And they always have somebody who talks about local business and somebody who talks about healthcare. And each person writes a column on certain days of the week in the paper. So if this year's healthcare or business expert writes an editorial criticizing leadership in our local hospital system, can I use that to talk about leadership theory for this paper?
Well, I would say it's something that you could use as part of a larger portfolio of sources, but it's not something that would qualify as one of these scholarly sources, by which we usually mean peer-reviewed journal articles. If you're using it as a starting point, so and so said, "Oh, this is very important," and then use it as the springboard to talk about a theory documented in one of those peer-reviewed journal articles, that would be great. But I don't think it would count towards the 2 to 3 that are required here.
Right. I don't think it would count as one of our 2 to 3 scholarly sources either, even though our newspaper does call them our citizen experts. So for scholarly sources, we're usually thinking about sources that are accurate because they are supported by credible sources that advance knowledge in a particular field. They are authoritative, meaning they're written by academics or other experts in that field. The findings should also be presented objectively without bias. They should be written for people in the field using discipline-specific vocabulary, and often we want them to be current sources, usually 3 to 5 years old, unless you're talking about some sort of seminal research, in which case they could be older. But as you're searching the library, it would be good to search for sources that are within the last 5 years of publication. So the assignment provides you with a link right here to the distance library, the distance learning portal for the library. You click on that, you will go here, which is our ACU online library distance learning portal. During the rest of this, or during the next portion of the webinar, I'm going to provide you with some tips and tricks for navigating the distance learning portal to locate sources. However, if you need additional assistance, at the bottom of the page, or the bottom of this screen, the middle of the page on the real website, they have a spot where you can click to review the online webinar for the library. They have their PowerPoint slides and transcript available. They also have this nifty Ask Us button if you would like to chat with a librarian for help looking for sources. And in the middle right here is where we're going to start searching with our ACU OneSearch. It allows you to perform a general search for the topic in all the ACU library archives. So let's zoom in. In this blank, I put some search terms that I think would help me pull up sources about leadership and healthcare management. I wrote transformational leadership here because after I read the textbook, I decided that that was one that I wanted to research and use as one of my theories. Now, when we do a search in the library database, Basil, can I just type something like I would when I go on the internet? What's the best leadership for healthcare management? Will that work here?
Well, I feel like we should do an actual search here and take a look for best leadership theory ever healthcare,
Oh,
because I'm very confident that that will get us the results that we're looking for.
that would definitely work. So when we search in our library, you're probably going to get better sources come back to you if you pick some specific keywords. So what I've done here is I picked one leadership theory, transformational leadership, and I wrote healthcare management because I also want what I get to come back related to that. You'll notice that in the middle, I have the word "and" in big letters. When we do a library database search and we use our targeted search terms, we can connect them with a Boolean operator like the word "and." So by typing transformational leadership and healthcare management, I'm telling the system that I want to bring back results that include both of those sets of keywords. If
Now, I
you,
have a
yes,
contrary perspective, Emmy.
okay.
I did search for best leadership theory ever healthcare, and I did not check that box. And I got 375,000 results. So once I finish reading them, I'll let you know what the best one is.
Oh my gosh,
I'm going to be busy for a little while.
you are. Um, you could try searching leadership theory and healthcare management if you want to use a more general perspective to see different discussions of different types. Or you could use the names of the different leadership theories to see what comes back. One thing you'll notice here is that I did check the box that says limit to peer reviewed. What does peer reviewed mean, Dr. Considine? Does it mean all my friends looked at that source, my peers, and they reviewed it and they said, wow, that's pretty neat?
What it usually means is that you have a journal editor who looks at it first, and they'll assign it to 2 to 5 reviewers who anonymously will look at it and give feedback. Some of which will be, is this something that they think should be published in the journal? Some of it will be, is this rigorous? Does it have well balanced argument? Does it cite recent source and relevant sources, etc.? And generally do a quality control check. So while peer review isn't perfect, it does mean that some number of people have looked at it and said, I think this is good and worthy of being published.
I agree. So we can say that peer-reviewed is what some might call the gold standard for research. If you check this box, you are going to target your results to peer-reviewed journal articles, like those that Dr. Considine just described for us that have gone through that process. Now, for this assignment, do you absolutely have to check this box? I do suggest using it to search for some of your sources. However, all scholarly sources are not peer-reviewed. For our context, if you want to perhaps pull up a book in our archives that discusses different types of leadership theory in healthcare, that would still be considered a scholarly resource for the purposes of your assignment. Just make sure if you do not check this box, you go into the book or the other resource that you find and you check it against the criteria that we discussed earlier. Make sure it is written by an expert in the field. It's been published objectively by a company or publisher organization that has no bias behind it. And hopefully among those, how many sources did you find when you did that? 375,000?
375,000. I'm working on the first one right now.
Oh, let me know what you find out.
There are a
Hopefully
lot
if
of
they're
words.
hopefully if they're coming through our portal, they're scholarly, but they may not be. So make sure you check it against the criteria we listed earlier. And always, of course, if you use something that is peer reviewed, you know that you are safe. So if we hit the search button, we pull up a list of search results that looks like this. And in the left-hand column, you're going to see over here any limiters that you have applied, for instance, peer-reviewed. You can also select the option to pull up a full text article. Basil, why is that important if we're working at home?
Well, if you were in the library and we had a physical copy, you could go and get a book off a shelf. But if it's not something that we have full text access to, you're going to have to fill out a form, and our library will contact another library to try and get a copy of that. And so that may take a period. Sometimes when I've requested things, it's taken a couple weeks to show up. usually a few days, but sometimes a couple weeks. And if you have an assignment that's coming up in a few days, maybe you want to look at things that you can read right now.
That's right, and this one's due Monday. So looking at the full text ones is probably your best bet. Down
I'm
here,
pretty sure I'll be done with my 375,000 results by
I
Monday.
know you're a speed reader.
Working on number two now.
Awesome. So down here, you can also narrow it by language if you prefer to read in English. Perhaps you might want to limit it to English. You can select a specific geographical area if you're interested more in healthcare organizations within the United States for your learning. You could select geography and do that. Um, you can also, I would like to show you how to go through our library databases. So if you're coming from the OneSearch page, the link to the databases is up in the corner. It's from A to Z. So if you click that, you will go to our list of all databases. One database you may want to try for this assignment is EBSCOhost. It's on the D through G tab. I'm suggesting this one because EBSCOhost incorporates several different databases together, but most of them are relevant to healthcare and business research. Academic Search Premier, Business Source Premier, Signall is the nursing and allied health databases, and there are other ones that will definitely pull up research relevant to what you're looking for. So this is a more targeted way to search within our library system. OneSearch, as Basil noted, even if you put in very broad search terms, it's going to bring you back 375,000 articles to read. So this will narrow it down a little bit, but it will also help ensure that your searching database is relevant to what you're looking for. Once you click into a database like EBSCOhost, we have the same opportunity here to apply limiters like we did in OneSearch. We can search for full text, we can search for peer-reviewed journal articles, and you can also narrow your date range. I put in here less than or equal to 5 years, which would be 2019 at this point. And I've used advanced search, which gives you the cool option of putting your keywords on different lines. And if we hit search, we will end up with more search results. Now, Basil, I know you're sitting there reading through your 375,000 results. Are you reading like the whole text of every single one to figure out if it's relevant for this assignment or not?
Is there a better way?
There's a
Because I'm on
slightly
Article
better
4
way.
now.
You're still making really good, that's an excellent pace. I am impressed. But if we click on an individual search result, I found this one. I thought that the title sounded so promising because it's talking about transformational leadership, innovative behavior, commitment to change and creativity, and all of that is so important in the healthcare setting. But what I made sure to do before I clicked on it and started reading through like Basil is I started by reading the abstract, which is this nice little summary provided by the authors um, just below the title and keyword information. And if you read through that, it's going to help you figure out if this is truly applicable to what you're doing. So in my
I'm
wonderful article, I actually found out it's not about healthcare, even though it came back when I searched for healthcare leadership. I found out this study was done in 11 subsidiaries of a financial institution. So for this paper, I only need 2 or 3 scholarly sources. And even though this might have something in it that has to do with healthcare, it did come back for a reason. I think I might want to spend time looking at other ones more related to the healthcare field and maybe keep this one on the shelf for later when I'm writing with something using more sources. What do you think, Basil?
I think you're having some commitment issues with this article on commitment and leadership.
I think you're right. I think I'm gonna put it to the side and I might come back to it later. Depends on what else I find. But I'm gonna spend my time now because I have some other stuff to do tonight, reading other abstracts and looking for other articles that I can dive into. So I then found this article, which was the impact of transformational leadership in the nursing work environment and patients' outcomes. Oh, it's about nursing, it's about healthcare management. Perfect. Then when I read this abstract, it even gives background related to transformational leadership. It says, somehow, as they reviewed these articles, they have found that it is shown to be the most successfully recognized leadership style in healthcare. I think I definitely want to read this one. And since we picked full text articles, in this case, I actually have a link to a PDF right in the corner that I can click on. Basil, which article are you up to now?
7.
Okay. I also, maybe Basil's using my strategy that I'm going to talk about here. I don't know. Let's see. I wanted to share a suggestion for reading a peer-reviewed journal article for this assignment. Some parts of peer-reviewed journal articles can be very dense and detailed. In particular, the methodology and results sections can include a lot of numbers and lists and math, which personally I find fun to read through, but not if I'm in a hurry. And even though these details are important as the researchers are telling us how they found out things, they may not be the most important to the writing that I'm doing right now, because I want to talk about the conclusions they draw as a result of their search or research, or about the theories or concepts that they're referencing as foundation for their research. So I'm probably going to spend more time for this assignment reading the abstract, the introduction, the literature review, and the discussion implications and conclusions section. If you scan the literature review, you might find useful background, especially on leadership theory, since that's what we're writing about. If you look in a section like the discussion implications or conclusions, you're going to find broad descriptions of what the researchers determined in the course of their research and how it may apply to your paper. For our next learning objective, since we finally found an article that we wanted to cite, we're going to talk about how to cite and reference in APA format. Our ACU database provides a really helpful tool. Next to the listing for each article on the right, I have a big green arrow pointing to something called Cite. So I'm going to click that and see what happens. Oh, it took me to a list of all different ways that I can cite this source for different styles. I'm going to scroll down and I found the one for APA 7th edition, and I was able to copy and paste that right into a reference. Now,
I
I
have
love
a
to,
question, Emmy.
yes,
So, given that this is a nursing related topic, shouldn't we be going to the American Nursing Association citation system?
well, no, because our assignment requires us to use APA 7. At ACU, most of our courses follow ACU Online anyway. Most of our courses use APA 7, so that's what we need to do for this assignment. But that's an excellent question.
I'm getting the impression I might have to start reading those rubrics.
Uh-oh, that is really important.
Yeah, but
So here,
I've got some articles to finish reading first.
oh, but I have to stop you because I have to get you to look at this database reference with me. This is the one that we pulled from the database. We need to tell our students something very important, which is that you cannot just copy and paste the article from our database into your paper. There might be some little things that you need to fix. So, Basil, what do you see wrong with this reference? Are you looking at your
Well,
big, enormous screen tonight?
I'm not looking at the largest one, but I think I can see this pretty clearly.
Okay,
So, there are two things. Can you see the writing I've written in red?
absolutely.
All right. So the first one is that the title of the journal article, or the name of the journal article, The Impact of Transformational Leadership in the Nursing Work Environment and Patient Outcomes, a Systematic Review. That's capitalized in title case. And when it's in your references, we need it to be capitalized in sentence case, the same way that you capitalize a sentence in APA style. So everything that's circled except for the A in a systematic review should be in lowercase.
Yep.
And then the DOI, it's not following the DOI.org format. Let me clear this briefly.
I
So
have a
basically, if
slide. I have a slide. Let me go to it.
you're too prepared.
I tried to prepare. So Basil got both of the errors in this reference that we need to look out for. Especially, we find that the capitalization of articles is not correct. They have all the letters capitalized. What we need to do, this is a super long title, so I broke it down into halves. Make sure that the title is written in sentence case, as Basil described. Only the T capitalized here. Make sure the subtitle is also written in sentence case. Capitalize the first letter, but not the others, unless there are proper nouns, but we don't have any in this situation. And here's our DOI. Basil, would you like to talk about the DOI format?
Sure. The DOI format is a frequent point of confusion because when the system was developed in the mid 2000s, people said, oh, that's really awkward. And so they came out with a new version that you could just click on. And people said, that's kind of long. And then they came out with the version that you see at the bottom of the slide, where it's just https://dy.org, bunch of other stuff, and you can just click on it. So
Mhm.
that is the one version that APA 7 and treats as correct. In APA 6 edition, because they kept developing new ones, there were technically 3 correct ways, but only one now. And so
I
we want to
remember.
make sure that is following that format.
It's so much simpler now. So in the middle of the DOI from our database, you actually see the letters ACU. If you see ACU in the middle, you are not in the right format. Use the simple one that Basil just described to you. Now that we finally have our reference that is APA aligned, notice I also made the hyperlink active because I'm going to be turning this in an electronic format, and maybe my professor or my classmate wants to click on it as an active link. Now that we have our reference, we can also talk about how to cite. We already know how to cite, in fact. So to cite in text in APA, we use our author date format. That means that for a paraphrase, which is information we write in our own words, we can put the author's name and the year in parentheses, with those two elements separated by a comma at the end of the sentence that contains a borrowed idea. We call this a parenthetical citation. Another way that we can cite is to use a narrative citation. That's where we name the author in the sentence and put the year after the name in parentheses. This is our narrative citation at the bottom. And in this situation, since we're writing in APA format, we've used a past tense verb, found. Basil, can you tell me how to pronounce this name?
I believe it is Istas.
Okay, it was a Greek
It's
article,
a
and I
Greek
know,
name.
yes, and I know you you have that relationship. So I thought when I found this article that you would be able to tell me how to pronounce it correctly during during our webinar. Now we have Istas again. We will model how to cite a direct quote using this article. For a direct quote, it's pretty much the same. You use the author, you use the year, but since it's a direct quote, we need to add locator information. In this case, it's an article. It has page numbers. We can put the page number, which uses the abbreviation P and then the number after it. For a regular parenthetical citation, we put the page after the author information and the year in the parentheses at the end of the sentence, or after the quote, excuse me, and all 3 of those elements are separated by commas. If you have a narrative citation with the author named before the quote, still put the year after their name, and then after the quote, you put the page number with the P period number in parentheses at the end. Another thing to note here is we are citing a work with 3 or more authors. In APA format, when you're citing a work with 3 or more authors, we use the first author's last name, Istas, as Basil taught me. Thank you. And the phrase et al. Et al means and others. The ET does not have a period after it. The AL does. So we have Istas et al., period, then a comma, and then the year to cite parenthetically for a paraphrase. Down here at the bottom, I modeled again with the direct quote, Istas et al., period, and then the year, and then the rest of your information. Not all sources are going to have 3 or more authors, so let's quickly go through and look at 2 authors. This is actually the reference for the financial institution research article that I shelved earlier, but it seemed like a good choice since we'd already seen it to talk about 2 authors. For 2 authors, you're going to name both of the authors in your citation. Basil, what is different about how we cite those names parenthetically or in a narrative citation when there are 2 authors?
Well, when it's inside parentheses, we use what I called as a youngster a squiggle, but which I have since
Ah,
learned is an ampersand.
awesome. And if we write the names in the sentence, we spell out the word and because it's part of our sentence. Since we figured out how to do 2 authors, let's also look at how to do 1 author. This is a book that I pulled up using not the peer-reviewed selection, but I did look at the book and it seemed like a pretty sound, expert author. It was all written with excellent citations throughout the book. So this may be a useful source for this assignment. For 1 author, you just put that author's last name and then a comma and then the year in parentheses if you're citing a paraphrase. If it were a direct quotation, you could put the page number after that. And here's how it would look if it's in a narrative citation. Lamp or lampe. I don't know how to pronounce that either. What do you think, Basil?
Without more context, I can only guess, but
I
the
know.
one time I've met someone with that name, it was Lampa.
Lampa. French. Okay. Lampa 2022. We are learning so much tonight. Lampa 2022 also is directly quoted at the bottom, so I've got that page number in parentheses. One other thing I want to point out is since this assignment requires you to discuss a lot of theories, you may be reading works by authors who are discussing the works of other authors who wrote the theory or have provided elaboration on the theory or explanations that you want to share in your paper. So we're going to talk about secondary citation. In this case, I have read Lampa, but Lampa has talked about a lot of other authors in their book. So to cite what we call using a secondary citation, we need to use language as cited in. So I read the book by Lampa. Lampa cites a lot of other authors. One of the details I want to use, perhaps, was actually cited from the Institute of Medicine in 2011. That means that my citation needs to identify the Institute of Medicine and it needs to identify Lampa. So I've got Institute of Medicine, comma, 2011, comma, as cited in Lampa, comma, 2022. This is what it looks like if you put it all in a parenthetical citation, and that tells the reader that I read Lampa, but Lampa read the Institute of Medicine. And here's one where Lampa was actually citing Burns, who was the innovator of this leadership theory, transformational leadership. So Lampa has cited Burns's seminal work here. I've named Burns in the sentence, put the original year of publication for that source after their name, Burns parentheses 1978, explained. Here Lampa actually quoted Burns. So I have that quotation. I have as cited in Lampa, comma, 2022, comma, and I'm using the page number from Lampa, not the page number from Burns, because the reader needs to know what I saw and what I looked at. So I've got as cited in Lampa, 2022, page 16. The page is necessary because it's a direct quote. On my references page, I would only have this reference to LAMPA. I would not mention Burns, again, or the Institute of Medicine, because the reader just needs to know what I actually looked at. My reader needs to know that. We can also talk about your textbook. Remember the assignment referred to your textbook and said that you could pick leadership styles or theories mentioned in your textbook, Chapter 4. If you decide you want to cite your textbook, it's Barr and Dowding. You can cite them in your text as we did the article with two authors, Barr and D. Dowding, if you're writing their names in your paper, Barr and Dowding, if it's in parentheses. But keep in mind, if you choose to refer to your textbook for this assignment, you're going to need to do so in addition to the 2 or 3 sources from the ACU Library Distance Learning Portal, because your assignment requires you to have those 2 or 3 scholarly sources. Now that we have gone through all of this to talk about our scholarly source finding and citing our scholarly sources, oh, Basil, which one are you up to now of your list of 375,000?
My eyes are starting to get tired. I'm 12 in now.
Oh, okay. I think your pace has slowed slightly, but
Yeah, might need to
yeah,
have some dinner and hit it again.
okay. While you're doing that, I'm going to talk about how to go ahead and start organizing and developing our draft. Let's take a quick look again at the questions from the assignment description. Remember that this first set of questions about the theory, background on the theory, how it approaches task needs, individual and team needs, and explaining the benefits and challenges, that has to be addressed twice, once about each theory that you choose. And then we need a section on explaining which theory we think is the best. So I'm going to take these questions and we can group them according to how they work together best to create the major sections for our paper. In this case, the assignment has really done the work for us. It's grouped the questions and we can have 3 sections, one on theory 1, one on theory 2, and then one summing up what is the best theory. After we create the section groupings, our next step is to identify our major headings. Headings are an important feature in APA format, which we reinforced earlier we are following, because they help chunk a paper into manageable sections and they act as signposts so your reader can follow along. It's like little signs you stick through your paper so that we can keep up with where we're going. To create headings, you can read the questions and come up with a phrase that incorporates keywords or sums up the overall point in a concise but descriptive way. So in this case, I would probably decide for my paper that instead of writing something like Leadership Theory 1 for my heading, which could be okay if you wanted to do that, I'm going to be a little bit more descriptive so my reader actually knows what's coming up. I decided I would list the name of the leadership theory. So we've been talking about transformational leadership, and I would put, for instance, transformational leadership as one heading. I would put the name of the other leadership theory as the second heading. Then for the third section, I might put best leadership approach for healthcare. But again, you're going to be the writer of your own paper and you might choose to use something different or phrase it differently. Now that we've created headings, we're going to see what they look like in the larger setting of APA format. To set up your draft, I do encourage you to try out our ACU APA course paper template, which is super awesome because it has all our APA settings pre-formatted. If you access the slide deck for this webinar, you will be able to click through this link to get through to find the paper template. Right now, I'm going to switch to sharing my template instead of my PowerPoint. Basil, is my paper showing?
Is your name Lenny Ross?
Yep, for right now it is.
And yes, it's showing.
Awesome. So in this document, I have the elements of the title page. I've decided my name is Lenny Ross tonight. I have the title. I have two double spaces between the title and my name for the evening, Lenny Ross. I have the department and the name of my university. I have the name of my course. I have my professor's name, and I have the due date, which is Monday. After that, I have my introductory paragraph. Before the introductory paragraph, we need to repeat the title of the paper. We don't put a heading that says introduction. We just put the title of the paper. Next, I have put in the headings that we talked about earlier. So blank leadership would be here. Transformational leadership, I might put that second. I put that as the second heading. Then I will have the third section, best leadership approach for healthcare. And the conclusion does get a separate heading. Now that the paper is laid out, let's use this to start developing a response. Under the heading for the major sections, you can list each of the questions posed by the assignment, which I have under this first heading, blank leadership. Provide background on the theory, describe how the theory approaches task, individual, and team needs, and list and explain the benefits and challenges of the theory. One strategy to start writing is to consider each question and then rewrite it as your topic sentence for the paragraph, or just kind of sum up its main idea. So we're going to compare what I have under blank leadership with what I have under transformational leadership. And we're going to see how I've done that here. So the first question was provide background on the theory. I decided I might want to start my paragraph for that by naming the theory and giving some indication that I'm going to talk about its origins and what it means. So I wrote this. Burns introduced the concept of transformational leadership in the 1970s. That is a fact that I have gotten from LAMP or LAMPA, excuse me, LAMPA 2022. So I made sure to put my citation here to show where I found that fact. And after that, I'm going to continue on to provide additional background. This contemporary theory of leadership suggests that the role of the leader is to blah, blah, blah. I'll give the characteristics of the leader and the leadership theory in a very general way. Then in the next part, we're going to consider prompt number 2, which was describe how the theory approaches task, individual, and team needs. Here, I'm going to rewrite my topic sentence to mention those 3 points. That way, the reader knows what's coming. I put transformational leaders view task, individual, and team needs as being intertwined. That way, I have named the leadership theory. I've mentioned that the paragraph is going to talk about task, individual, and team needs. And I've kind of given a hint of what's going to happen in that in this theory, all of it's kind of interrelated. And that's how the theory gets everyone to buy in to what's going on. In the paragraph, I'm going to explain the approach or actions the leaders take to address each need. So I'm going to do them in order. Since I have task, individual, and team written in that order in sentence 1, I'm going to follow that same order in the rest of the paragraph. So task. I've got Burns, 1978, explained that to ensure successful completion of tasks, there's our keyword, transformational leaders ensure that goals represent the values and motivations, the wants and needs, the aspirations and expectations of both leaders and followers. This is that secondary citation that we talked about earlier. I didn't actually have to go find Burns for this assignment because we're only using 2 or 3 sources, and for this paper, it's okay if we use a secondary citation. When we get into more intensive research later, we would probably want to go and find Burns just so we could show that we were citing Burns in its original format. But in this case, for this paper, we'll just use secondary citation so everybody knows where I found this idea. And then after I start discussing that, I'll provide more information about when goals are shared, what happens, and why do they take these actions when they address tasks the specific way. Then I would refer to individual and team needs similarly throughout the rest of the paragraph. Last, within each of these first 2 sections, you have to list and explain the benefits and challenges of the theory. So my topic sentence for this paragraph is going to talk about benefits and challenges if I decide to write about them both in the same paragraph. So I wrote down here, transformational leadership brings benefits and poses challenges within healthcare organizations. Now notice that this says list and explain. That means that I need to list the benefit or the challenge, which I've done here. The first benefit is that transformational leadership focuses on building teamwork. I would want to cite that using one of my sources, using our author date citation. Now, to make sure I also explain it, I'm going to add more information after that. I'm going to explain how it's a benefit, especially in the context of a healthcare organization. This factor supports healthcare organizations by. So you can use this same strategy to rewrite or start the paragraph on your best leadership approach for healthcare. Let me get this up here. Here it is. The question says, select one of the theories and explain why you think it is the best leadership approach for healthcare management. So my topic sentence is going to say, for many reasons, the best leadership approach for healthcare management is blank. If I decided it was transformational leadership, that's what I would put there. Then I would use the research that I've done from our library or perhaps my textbook, but also the library. 2 to 3 scholarly sources from the library, and I will use that to back up my reasoning of why I've selected this theory. Then at the end, we have the conclusion. And of course, let's not forget our references page. These are some of the articles that we have talked about during our session. I have them listed alphabetically on the references page, and they are all formatted with a hanging indent. That means that the first bit of information, in this case, all the authors' names, go at the left margin, and the subsequent lines are indented 1/2 inch. Basil, do you have anything to add about how to develop the paper while we're still looking at it?
I have reached a conclusion that maybe I should have checked that peer review box. I'm not sure I can get through all of my
Oh
sources
no!
over the weekend.
Oh, especially with that marathon you have coming up. You can get it to play on audio while you're running your marathon. Get a screen reader to read it to you. It would work.
With a conclusion, I think that it is always a good idea to look back and see what you can tell your reader now that you have laid out your argument, because it's different in the introduction. We're saying, here's what I'm going to tell you, and then you've made your case, and now things land differently. So it's not just a matter of copy paste, but also what you tell the reader that they will now be able to understand and appreciate and agree with, that they wouldn't have before because you hadn't made your whole argument yet.
I agree. So in the conclusion, we want to think about the larger implications. Some people call that the so what. So what? Why did I read your paper? And that's a great point that we want to sum that up. In this case, we really want to drive home how these leadership theories contrast or compare in the context of healthcare management and why one is better than the other. And on that note, we have reached the end of our webinar content. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint and I'm just going to wrap up. Today we used APCO 465, Week 1, Assignment 1, Leadership Theories in Healthcare Management to understand how to prepare to write about leadership theories, locate scholarly research about leadership theories, cite and reference resources in APA format, and organize and develop a draft. Before we go, I'd like to tell you very quickly more about the services we provide in our online writing center. You can check out the online writing center homepage in My ACU. Watch this video for steps for our updated practices for making an appointment and submitting a paper. We will work with you with any stage of your writing. Remember, we offer email asynchronous appointments in which you upload your paper and we send feedback back within 24 hours. We also offer Zoom appointments when you can chat with a tutor in real time via Zoom or even by phone if you'd rather use phone during that appointment. Our Writing Center website offers a bunch of resources. Here's a reminder of our new submission process. You will schedule an appointment at WC Online, and then you will upload your paper directly to our appointment form. You can contact us at onlinewritingcenter@acu.edu. Through this link, if you happen to be in our slide deck, you can schedule an appointment. You can also visit the Online Writing Center website. The APA course paper template is linked here. We also have a YouTube channel and our Online Writing Center blog full of videos and writings to help you on your writing journey. Other webinars that you may find helpful include our Intro to APA 7th edition, and I added the one about secondary citations and going to the source just in case you need to use some secondary citation in this paper. And with that, we come to the end of our webinar. I thank you so much for learning with us tonight. Thank you, Basil, for helping me and teaching me how to pronounce names. And as we wrap up, where did you end up in your list of readings?
Well, I think that I'm going to have to call it at 20 for tonight.
20? That's still good. That only leaves you like, let's see, 374,980 to go. You can do it.
Well, I'll see what I can do. Thanks for joining me, Emmy.
Thank you so much. Bye.